The 2024 draft is over, and Leafs fans, we got a lot to talk about because, and this isn't an exact unit of measurement, but the Leafs had a butt ton of picks. Problem is, most of you probably didn't get to see it live because they were late in the draft. If you were watching live on Sportsnet like me, you saw that sometime around the 5th round, they cut to the Blue Jays game, which makes sense, and then it continued on Sportsnet 1, but if you didn't have Sportsnet 1, the final 6 picks of the draft for the Leafs were between rounds 5 and 7. Leafs went off the board in the first round. There were some trades, and they even got a player. Well, all the draft picks are players. You know what I mean? Like, they got an NHL. They traded for Chris Tanev. They got Chris Tanev. They got his rights. He might only be a Leaf for 48 hours, but they got him. If Chris Tanev does sign with another team, just know that he is a Leaf legend, up with the likes of Evan Rodriguez, Jared McCann, and Olaf Kolzig. We'll save Tanev for a little later. Let's talk about who the Leafs drafted. Here's how it all started. Night 1 of the draft, last night, the Leafs had the 23rd overall pick. The 23rd pick comes around, and Stian Solberg is still available on the board, and I'm really excited for this guy. Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects came on the podcast. He was talking about Solberg as being the most violent player in this draft, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, no. Give me one of those. That sounds good. But here's the thing. The Leafs didn't have a 2nd round pick or a 3rd round pick. Their next pick wasn't until the 4th round. The Leafs are skint on draft capital because they keep trading it away at the deadline because they have a very expensive team. So the Leafs traded down. They traded down from 23 to 31. They moved back 8 spots in the 1st round, and for their troubles, they got a 2nd rounder out of Anaheim for it, the 58th overall pick. You know what? That's smart. That's just a smart move. No, I'm glad they did it. And then with that very same pick, the Anaheim Ducks select Stian Solberg. No! Oh, I was cheesed. I was mad. But you know what? Solberg shoots left. Oh, okay. They need defense. They need defense of any kind, but they need righties in their system badly. Dude, they have like none. On the Leafs, they have Liljegren, who they still need to sign to a deal, and Connor Timmins. On the Marlies, they have Topi Niemela and not Marshall Rafai, like I said in a previous video. And with the 31st overall pick, the Leafs select just that, a defenseman who shoots right. Ben Danford. Again, I won't lie to you. That's not the right-handed defenseman who I thought the Leafs were going to go with at spot 31. Was I a little disappointed? In the moment, yeah, I was, a little. But I've done more research and more time has passed, and I like the pick more than I did yesterday. I think regardless of who else was available, this kid is good. And something that I was trying to convey on the Steve Dangle podcast, listen, if you're a Leaf fan and you don't have a ton of faith in what the Leafs are doing right now, you can't be blamed. They've lost 7 out of their last 8 playoff series, and people keep talking about, oh, well, they're spectacular in the regular season. Where? No, they've been good. Oh, they've had 100 plus points. Okay, finish first. Oh, they finished top 5 in the league. They finished first in the division, and not the made-up one, the Canada one. Anyway, I'm losing sight of the point here. If you don't have faith in the Leafs, fine. You should, however, have faith in their scouting staff, especially their amateur scouting staff for the draft. And that might seem confusing to you because wait a sec, over the past few years, the Leafs haven't churned out a lot of prospects. Well, no, but the reason for that is they have no picks ever. They trade them all away for everybody. They've traded away draft picks for Ilya Lyubushkin twice. They traded away for Joel Edmondson. They got Connor Dewar, and that's just this year. All those picks for Jake McCabe. All those picks for Ryan O'Reilly. All those picks for Nick Foligno. This is just over the course of years, and I haven't even named them all. And eventually it catches up with you. Oh, a 3rd round pick for Dave Riddick. Remember that? I do. However, with the draft picks the Leafs have had, they've done very well. Nick Robertson, is he a super duper star? No, but he's clearly an NHL player. He scored 15 goals last year. He should score more this year if given a regular spot, and he was a 2nd round pick. Matthew Knies, the Leafs picked ahead of where a lot of the experts, including Bob McKenzie, had him going in the draft. They picked him. He's been great. He's on their top line. He's in their top 6, and he was a good playoff performer this past year. 2nd round pick, Fraser Minton. He's already played in the NHL. He was on Team Canada. He looks pretty good. Who knows what he tops out at, but he looks like he'll play in the NHL. Easton Cowan, when he was picked 28th overall last year, everyone was like, who the heck is that? Why didn't they give this guy or that guy or that guy? And then he's the best player in the Ontario Hockey League. Wes Clark and the amateur scouting staff of the Toronto Maple Leafs have earned some benefit of the doubt. So if you're Ben Danford and you're sitting there like, they picked me? You should feel pretty good about yourself. If Wes Clark thinks you're a guy worth picking, you might just be good. Leaf fans, especially EastEnders of the GTA, I will say this. Let's get out and see this guy this year. He is a member of the Oshawa Generals, and I'm stoked about that as a resident of Durham region. I'm trying to think of the last time the Leafs had a prospect on the Oshawa Generals. The only guys I could think of, Tyler Biggs? I think it might have been Tyler Biggs. It was quite a while ago. And you might say to yourself, oh yeah, Steve, I'm gonna go out of my way to go watch a prospect the Leafs wasted a first rounder on who had 1 goal last year. Well, that's why you should watch him. You didn't see him play. This is from Brock Otten, who's the director of scouting for McKeen's Hockey, a good hockey publication for the draft. I've been driving the Ben Danford hype train for a while. Leafs fans, you're getting an absolute warrior on the back end. 10+ year NHL defender. Mobile, hardworking, offense took a positive step in the second half of the season. And that tracks with what the Leafs did last year with Easton Cowan. Easton Cowan got better from quarter to quarter to quarter to quarter, and then in the playoffs, he was even better. Nylander Thews on Twitter quoting Scott Wheeler of The Athletic. Danford doesn't maybe have the statistical profile you'd like for out of a second or third rounder, but he has the respect of a lot of people around the OHL, and the Generals gave him a letter for his draft year, a Wes Clark if I've ever seen one. From Rachel Dory, who's worked for 2 different NHL teams. I saw Danford and Seneca, both on the Oshawa Generals, went 3rd overall to the Anaheim Ducks, live more than any other prospects this year. Danford is only scratching the surface of his offensive game. I'm expecting production growth next season. Defensively, he's a rush killer and a physical menace. Lots to like. From Mitchell Brown of Elite Prospects, who tracks these guys, Ben Danford clips highlighting his NHL elements, and you'll have to check that out on Twitter. Obviously, I don't have the rights to show the footage. Rush defense, physicality, retrievals, and some playmaking. Standout ability is initiating and absorbing contact on the wall, and then making a play under pressure. Seems so simple, but it's a rare ability. And he continues, Leafs take Ben Danford, a smooth defender with rush-stopping skills, high-end retrievals, and a sneaky good physical game. Much better with the puck than the points suggest. He has plenty of playmaking skills and flashes some ability to manipulate defenders. Lastly, Hunter Crowther of Daily Faceoff, one OHL coach told me the 31st overall pick, Ben Danford, is one of the smartest and meanest players in this draft. He's mean. Whoever takes this guy is getting someone who will be a 22-minute-a-night guy in a few years. Again, there's lots out there about this guy. Did he light it up? No, he didn't. He plays defense, though. Do you care? There were several guys, several defenders, several right-handed defenders who were available earlier in the first round who had 30-plus goals this year. When was the last time, since the 2005 lockout, when was the last time a defender scored 30 goals in a season? I can think of 2. I think 2. It's very rare that it translates. If you get a defenseman who can score goals, great, but you gotta be able to defend. I'm certainly not comparing Ben Danford to Cale Makar, but if you watch Cale Makar, yes, he wows you with the flashes in the offense, but he's an incredible defensive player. Look, last year, we didn't like the Easton Cowan pick, but we were like, you know what, let's sit back, wait and see. And he was great. Now, Ben Danford, he's got some training camps, and in September, he'll be with the Oshawa Generals. Let's wait and see. Maybe he'll even get into an exhibition game with the Leafs. Now, remember how I told you the Leafs had the 58th overall pick this year? Yeah, no, they traded it. It was a weird trade. They took that pick and traded it to the Florida Panthers in exchange for a second-round pick next year, and the Leafs also acquired the Panthers' 7th-round pick this year, which, I didn't realize this at the time of the trade, is the last pick in the draft, because the 7th round is the last round in the draft, and the Panthers won the Stanley Cup, so their 7th rounder is the last pick in the last round. So you're probably asking yourself, why would the Leafs do that? So let's go back to the Ducks trade. The reason the Leafs make that trade is they see who's available at 23, and they're like, you know what? We're going to be able to get someone who we really like at 31. So let's get 2 picks instead. So they do that. They get a guy they like at 31, and then with that extra pick, they send it to the Florida Panthers in exchange for 2 picks. Most importantly, a second-round pick next year. there's a couple things that might be the case. Number one, there wasn't anyone at 58th overall who the Leafs liked enough to spend that second rounder on. Number two, a 2025 second rounder is going to be more valuable for the Leafs than a 2024 second rounder. The reason for that is the Leafs can trade a 2025 second rounder at the trade deadline for someone who's going to help them in this year's Stanley Cup playoffs. They can't do that with a 2024 pick because that draft was today. So might the Leafs use this pick next year? Yeah, but they have the option to trade it. So now we got to go all the way to the 4th round for the Leafs' next pick, where they drafted defenseman Victor Johansson out of Leksand in the Swedish Junior League. Again, this guy doesn't have a ton of offense to his game, just 8 points in 34 games with Leksand in the Swedish Juniors this past year. But let's face it, I like the Leafs' goalie depth in their organization. They've got some young forwards. I don't know if they have a ton ready to graduate, but they have some really young guys. Robertson and Nyes and Holmberg. Oh, Cowan and Minton. How did I forget those two? On D, they barely have anybody. At best, they have several maybes, whereas up front, you're like, yeah, a bunch of those guys are going to hit. In net, yeah, I think some of those guys are going to hit. On D, you got nothing. Now you got two. Now, what's the controversy with this guy? Because there was some when he was picked. EliteProspects.com and HockeyDB.com both list Victor Johansson as 6'1". Hey, that's pretty good. Dude just turned 18. Who knows? Might even sneak another half inch into his height. Probably not. Like, whatever. 6'1" is enough. What's probably not enough is he, on EliteProspects.com, is listed as 143 pounds. That's the lightest prospect I can think of. I cannot think of the Leafs or anyone else ever drafting a player that light. Listen, I think it's overstated very often, the size that is needed, and, you know, I think some small players can put together some really good careers. But you would see a guy with 30 pounds on Victor Johansson in the NHL and be like, wow, that's one of the smallest players in the league. So basically, they just drafted a kid who's 30 pounds smaller than the smallest player in the league. Here's the thing. At that age, things change very quickly. So EliteProspects.com lists Victor Johansson as 143 pounds. HockeyDB lists him as 159. That's still light. It's a huge difference. And Nick Richards saying here, Johansson is listed at 158 pounds on the Junior 20 national website, so his national team website. Still a lot of filling out to do for his 6'1" frame, but he's made progress in that area. Well, Victor, if your experience is anything like mine, putting on weight should be no problem. Let's not lose sight of what's most important. Are you good at hockey? Next, we got the 5th round. The Leafs have a little bit of fun because they have back-to-back picks. They have the 151st and 152nd. 151st overall, the Leafs drafted a player who I'm excited for because he is a noted Alan Walsh client, Miroslav Holinka. Alan Walsh, of course, an NHLPA agent, an NHL agent. He has a show on SDPN called Agent Provocateur, and I texted him asking him for a mini scouting report. He was obviously very busy. He offered this: strong skating, physical forward with great hockey sense. And then after that, he said, Steve, I'm busy, leave me alone. Kidding, he just simply, that was all he said. Part of the reason I got an EliteProspects.com subscription is it's difficult to find all the stats for these players. There are some websites you go to where you would think Holinka only played 16 games this season because that was the amount of professional games he played. It's not true. Yeah, he had 1 goal and 2 assists for 3 points in 16 games in the Czech League. But in the Czech Under-20 League, Holinka was dominant. In 29 games played, he had 20 goals and 21 assists. That is 41 points in 29 games. That is good. So, how does Holinka fare against full-grown men? Well, he was there. He played games against them, which not every player in this year's draft could say. Even Ivan Demidov, picked 5th overall by the Montreal Canadiens, he only played a cup of coffee in the KHL this year. He dominated his junior peers, but only played a little bit against fully grown men. The NHL Network broadcast had Holinka listed as just a center. He's listed as a center/wing on EliteProspects.com, so he was the first forward selected by the Leafs this year. But Holinka wouldn't be the last forward selected. The very next pick, they get another one. This one a winger. Russian-born Alexander Plasovsky. Right shooting, again on the lighter side at 174 pounds, 6'2". Room to grow. In Russia, it's not an apples-to-apples comparison, but there's basically 3 leagues. The KHL, which is the NHL, the VHL, which is the AHL, the minors, and the MHL, which is like major junior. Blasovsky only played 2 games in the VHL. He played most of his hockey in junior. 8 goals, 9 assists, 17 points in 33 games. The Leafs' last pick of the 5th round, 157th overall, they get another goalie. I say another because they've been consistently drafting goalies basically every year for the last little while. They get Timofey Obvintsev from the CSKA junior program. Now, Jerome Berube said, Toronto takes Timofey Obvintsev, 157th overall. He was our 5th ranked goaltender on our goalie list. Here's our full conversation about him on our goalie podcast, and there's a link. We can maybe put that in the description as well. I want to check that out too. He had a good season with CSKA's junior program with a .921 save percentage in 16 games. I think the Leafs might have tipped their hand at what they're thinking next year too, or I wouldn't be surprised to see them draft another goalie next year. And the reason for that is Obvintsev is 19 years old. There's a 17-year-old goalie on that team named Pyotr Andrianov, who had a .916 in 20 games. I mean, if the Leafs were scouting Obvintsev, they would have seen Andrianov's games. Last 3 picks, we can zoom through them. The Leafs had 3 picks in the 7th round. With the Leafs' first pick of the 7th round, 200th overall, the Leafs go for size. Matt Leahy, 6'5", over 200 pounds. Please tell me he plays defense. He does! 2 goals, 19 points in 54 games in the BCHL with the Nanaimo Clippers, and do you care about that? No, because 6'5". Add him to Noah Chadwick. The Leafs are starting to stockpile some pretty big guys back there. 216th overall, the Leafs get Sam McHugh from the Owen Sound Attack. Sudbury, Ontario native, played for 2 teams in the OHL this past season, and here's how he did. First, he was with the Peterborough Petes. 11 goals, 5 assists for 16 points in 34 games. Then he went to the Owen Sound Attack and played also 34 games, but this time had 12 goals, 9 assists for 21 points. Interesting that on both teams he had more goals than assists. 6'2", $187. He's already 18 and he'll actually be 19 in October. Then there was some confusion. The Leafs had the last pick in this draft, 225th overall. I thought, and Cap Friendly thought too, they had this wrong on their website for a few minutes. I thought that the Leafs traded this pick to Dallas for Chris Tanev. They didn't. We can talk about that in a minute. The Leafs made this pick. 225th overall, the final pick in the 2024 draft. The Leafs get Nathan Mays from the Spokane Chiefs, and they go for size again. 1 goal, 16 assists in 68 games in the WHL. That's nothing. 170 pounds, also nothing. 6'3", now we're talking. And he's from a place in Canada with one of the best names in the country, Salmon Arm, British Columbia. He turned 18 less than 3 weeks ago. So we'll wrap it up with where we are right now. The Leafs traded a 7th round pick, but it wasn't this year. They traded a 7th round pick in 2026. Who knows where that pick is going to end up, and who cares? It is going to be around 210th, 15th, 20th, hopefully last overall. The Leafs trade that pick in 2026, the 7th rounder in 2026, along with Max Ellis, who was on an NHL contract but playing for the Toronto Marlies, an undrafted forward. They trade those 2 things, a player and a pick, to the Dallas Stars in exchange for the negotiating rights to Chris Tanev. Tanev is everything the Leafs need. He's mean, he's right-handed, he plays defense, and he's got some size. How old is he? Glad you asked. He's 34. There were some rumors that the Leafs traded for him because they want to sign him to an 8-year contract. That is actually not the case because that is against the collective bargaining agreement because Chris Tanev was not a member of the Leafs at the trade deadline. If the Leafs wanted to sign Tanev to an 8-year deal, what they would have had to have done is Tanev would have had to sign his deal with Dallas and then get traded to the Leafs. He already hasn't done that, so now they're trying to negotiate a contract with Tanev. All the rumors out there are long. It's going to be like a 5, 6, 7-year deal. Again, that's nuts because he's 34. I think this is going to be a contract that gets complained about for a long time, but not necessarily by Leaf fans. I think Tanev is going to be good for as long as he can be good, and then he is going to get LTIR'd. He is not going to make it to the end of this contract, especially if it's 7 years. He'll be able to come up with some excuse, legitimate or not, probably legitimate on account of he's been injured a bunch in his career, and he'll be over 40, and he'll be put on LTIR, and he won't count against the cap, or rather, you know, the finagling with LTIR. And other teams will get upset about it, and they'll say that's illegal, and the Leafs will say, yeah, well, why don't you cry about it? Because everyone in the league does this. Everyone in the league abuses LTIR. The Leafs have done it in the past, yes. A lot of the recent Cup champions have done it. Tampa has done it. Vegas has done it. I don't care. Why don't you cry and poop in your hat? But until then, we don't know. Tomorrow is a day off. Then it's free agency on Monday. I don't think tomorrow's going to be a day off at all. There's been endless rumors that the Leafs are trying to bring Tyler Bertuzzi back. If they want to do that before he becomes a free agent, they have tonight and tomorrow to do it. Max Domi, they have tonight and tomorrow to do it. Chris Tanev, they have tonight and tomorrow to do it. Lyubushkin, they got tonight and tomorrow to do it. And then you got guys who are restricted free agents like Timothy Liljegren and Nick Robertson, who won't be unrestricted free agents, but, well, they're not getting offer sheeted. Right? Yo, imagine. I'm just saying tomorrow could have a lot of activity. I'll have more to say on Tanev when he's actually signed to a contract. Right now, it's kind of difficult to have an opinion on it. To the point where, like, even if the Leafs were to completely screw this up and weren't able to sign him, they gave up a 7th round pick 2 drafts from now, like after the 2024 draft, 2 drafts from now, and a minor leaguer who was on an NHL contract, and they just get rid of a contract slot. I'm okay with that, but I'd rather have Chris Tanev. I'd rather have him a lot. Will that happen? We'll have to see. That is it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like this video. Click subscribe if you really liked it, and subscribe to SDPN because we've been all over the draft and we'll be all over free agency. On Monday, we'll be making videos all day, and we'll have a live stream in the evening. Tell all your friends. Monday, SDPN YouTube channel. Big things.